Now we learned about Ohm's law and what they could do and our calculations. We want to know how we're gonna understand these calculations, how many current is going through the LED and how many resistance and how many voltage in that battery. Well, we have a device that could actually measure any of these stuff, and that's going to be in this video. Hello everybody, this is King Tut here, and welcome to another Electronics 101 tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll teach you guys multimeter. So what is a multimeter? A multimeter is a measuring device that allows you to measure different parts of electricity and different components. So different parts of electricity includes voltage, current, frequency, and temperature. And the reason why I put temperature here is because electricity, when it comes to DC electricity, the more voltage, the more current, the hotter the wires are, and it might either burn you or probably shock you to death. AC, on the other hand, it doesn't make you feel like a burn. It makes it feel like it feels different. And later on in the series, I will teach you guys the difference between DC and AC. And different components include resistance, capacitance, and inductance. Usually these three are usually the components that you measure. And every multimeter are not that accurate. So if you're going to use Ohm's law and get the resistance value, and you go to measure the resistor, it's going to be very, very close to what you calculate in for the resistor. Or in terms of voltage and currents, it's going to, when you measure voltage and current, it's going to be really, really close to the value, to the value that you calculated. And it comes in either one of two kinds, either auto or manual range. So you might be wondering, what's manual range and what's auto range? So manual range is it allows you to adjust the range of measurements by just like manually adjusting it. So let's say if you're measuring voltage of a wall outlet, so it's 120 volts usually, it's a standard. You have to change to an AC voltage, and you have to put in the right range value. So you can't put like 2 volts, you have to adjust it to 200 volts, or it says 200 volts. As for resistance, it's going to be the same thing. If you see like the significant figures or the amount of zeros, say 200 or 100, you have to adjust to there so you could actually measure resistance in the hundreds range. Auto range multimeter allows you to measure different, allows you to measure while the multimeter automatically adjusts the measurement range. So if you're, so this is what I'm using, and that's what I'm going to be using to demonstrate. And I'll put an affiliate link in the description. So if you're measuring a wall outlet, let's go to that same example. Instead of adjusting the voltage to AC and going to the 200 range or the hundreds range, you adjust it to volt, and if you have this, you adjust it to volts and then adjust it to AC by pressing select. But that's only if you have this product. If you have what it looks like this, but auto range, you'd actually they have different mechanism for you to do. So it really, different mechanism varies with different multimeter. So there are different types of meters that we're going to be using in this tutorial. So we're going to be using voltmeter to measure volts. So an ammeter to measure amps, and an ohmmeter to measure ohms. All of these are in multimeter. And that's why it's called a multimeter, because it allows you to measure volts, amps, ohms, etc., etc. So how do you use a multimeter? How do you use a voltmeter? So it really depends on whether you're measuring voltage, current, and resistance. So how do you use a voltmeter? You basically put a positive lead at any point in the circuit, and usually you put the negative lead to the ground. So positive lead is red, the negative lead is blue. That's what usually the color is when you represent positive and negative. For currents, you put the positive lead on one end of the component or wire, and you put the negative lead to another end of another component or wire. And the reason for this here is you're trying to measure currents. You want to measure the electricity that is flowing through the multimeter. So once it flows through the multimeter, the multimeter will, or the ammeter will collect the information, the amount of current that is flowing, and it's going to spit out the amount of current that is flowing in the circuit from one point to another. For resistance, you have to make sure the circuit is off, and you have to isolate one resistor, just take it off of the circuit, or take one resistor, and you have to put positive lead on one end and the negative lead on the other end, and that's how you get resistance. So without further ado, let's get into the demonstration. So you see here, I actually have my circuits disconnected, and I'm using my pocket multimeter. So you see here, it actually has these two prongs attached to the multimeter, and to turn it on, put to whatever settings you want to put. So if you want to measure voltage, you could set it to voltage. If you want to go to ohms, set it to ohms. Or if you want to measure currents, set it to currents, where it says MA. Alright, so if you want to turn it off, just adjust your knob to off. And I'm going to be putting this, the link to this product is going to be in the description and hopefully in the comments, because hopefully YouTube doesn't erase that or blocks me from putting any of the link in the comments below. So even though I'm going to be using this multimeter right here, it's going to be really difficult to put this up close because of the two prongs. I have to have good contact, and I have to like leave it there and like hold on to it. So an easier way to do that, an easier way to keep contact and put this multimeter up close, is to use an alligator clips. So the reason why these are called alligator clips, because their ends actually looks like a mouth of an alligator, like So if you guys are interested in alligator clips, I'm going to put a link to the description and in the comments below, hopefully in the comments below. It comes in multicolor, so I put all these alligator clips in the bag right here. And it comes with not just black or red, it comes in green, yellow, and white as well. So if you're interested, click on the link in the description and or comment below. Without further ado, let's measure the battery first for voltage. So to do that, you have to adjust the knob to V, where it says V, AC, and DC. That's going to be the voltmeter part in the multimeter. And just leave the settings as is. There's no need to change DC to AC. AC is something totally different, but for the battery, it's DC voltage. So let's connect all of these to its respective wire. So let's do that. And as you see here, it actually measured to 8.88. So it's not exactly 9 volt battery. It's somewhere close. If I were to take it off, you would get like a weird value because the multimeter isn't connected to the battery. So it's 8.88. It's really close to 9 volts. Alright. We turned on the circuit. Let me get it in a lower exposure and focus. And let me zoom in. There you go. And let's lessen the exposure. Yeah, you see here? It's illuminating very, very bright. And we're wondering how many current is going through the LED. Well, let's do it. So basically, let's take off this this red lead, the positive lead, and let's connect the red with the red, and then let's connect the black, the other side, with the other end of a component or wire. So let's do that. Oh, and before I do that, make sure, let me see if it's on focus, make sure you adjust that to milliamp. If you're measuring something and you didn't adjust it, you're more likely to fry your multimeter or burn the fuse. And what a fuse is basically a component that actually protects your circuit. So if there's a huge voltage or current draw, like flow in the circuit, the fuse is gonna break and the circuit will be protected. If you don't have any fuse on your circuit, then your circuit will more likely to be fried and it's going to catch on fire, so you don't want that. So anyway, make sure you adjust it to MA when you're measuring current. So let's put in the black lead with the other end of the circuit, and you see here it light up the LED because current is going from the battery through the multimeter and through the resistor and through the LED. So current is basically a flow of electricity, and that's what the ammeter is doing. It's measuring the flow of electricity. So that's why we should connect it like that. So you see here, it measured out 24.59 milliamp. Not amps, milliamp. You can see the small lowercase m there. This is a 220 ohm resistor, and I'm going to be measuring resistance. So before I do that, let's adjust this to where it has the omega symbol. That's for ohms, and you can see this it says mega ohms. Don't worry about that. And the 0-L, that means overload, but it's not really overload. That's basically, if you're not measuring any resistance, it's going to show you this. So let's, and also it doesn't matter which leads that you could put the positive and the negative or red or black multimeter leads on, as long as it, either way it's gonna give you the measurements for the resistor. And I could bet you that it's not exactly 220 ohm resistor, probably something close to that. Yeah, so you see it's close to that. It's not exactly 220, it happens to be 222, and so it's 1% tolerance. My resistor has 1% tolerance, so it could either be 1% lower than the actual value or 1% higher than the actual value, or the ideal value of the resistor. Thank you so much for watching. If you really like my video, please give it a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you think of my video, how can I improve it, and whatever tutorial you would like me to do. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.